everybody. Welcome back to Football Fundits. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about that amazing game that happened last night between Tottenham Hotspur and Manchester United at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. We previewed this game some time ago, and we have a separate segment on that. And in that segment, we spoke about how we thought the two teams would line up. Our pundits here gave us their predictions. We spoke to you about whether or not Pogba would start. And today, we're going to dissect all of that. Before we begin in its true sense, and before I hand it over to my fellow pundits, I'd just like to say that, guys, I call this game spot on. In our previous segment about this game, I said that if Pogba doesn't start, it's going to be a 1-1 grab. And if Pogba plays and if he starts, United could actually nick this 2-1, which almost happened last night with that penalty that was almost thought about it. And I think by and large, Pogba was the best player on the pitch for whatever 30, 20, 40 minutes that he played. I thought he transformed United's attack. What he brings to this United side is something so different. And let's get straight into it. First up, 1-1. What do you guys think of the result? 2 points lost for Ole or a hard-fought 0.1 for both sides?
I think in the end, United's toughest fixture was Tottenham. So I see a point would be a good point gained, especially with the way we started the game. And I'll tell you why. Because I think we started the game with the right team. The problem was that our midfield didn't live up to the the form that they had in the start of the season or start of this year in 2020, the 11-game unbeaten run. I feel that our midfield was overrun by Sissoko and Winks. And that's what gave the Tottenham the momentum, which gave them that one goal. Let's be honest, they didn't have too many chances. So it wasn't that we were very poor for the whole game. We were poor in the start, the first 25-30 minutes, and that's where they capitalized on. It was an individual error. But coming to Pogba, I feel that we would have been way more overrun if Pogba would have started this game, only because Pogba has amazing attacking talent. No one doubts it. He's probably one of the best in the world there. But we've seen it time and again that problem with one holding midfielder is Pogba doesn't drop back enough to help. And when Sissoko and Winks were already pushing a Fred and McTominay at the brink, Pogba in that side would have been way more overrun in the start, and it would have been way more tougher on our defenders to hold on that pressure from Son and from Bergwijn. What do you think, Paul?
I think that's only coming down to just because of the fact of fitness, right? In general, I think, yes, Pogba and Bruno can start and all those, the ground can be covered. I think just comes down to the fitness issue right now is where I agree that, why he didn't start. I was the one who kept harping on he has to start. Yeah. But okay, fitness is a concern, then you can't really say because this was a typical Jose Mourinho smashing grab. Yeah. You had to just be there. That was it. That was just down to it. And
he got Nita Volvo, he got Shivneri, he got all the buses. Sab khali pada idhar, sab rakha diya udhar ek aise.
Everything. It was a proper Mourinho setup. And the problem where United faced was, again, that's been plaguing them all season. It was to getting that final ball through. I think Bruno, for me, was the best player on the field by a distance. But his final pass there was lacking. It was probably just down to, the match time being on the field, that sharpness coming back post 100 days. But otherwise, you could see the vision was there. You could see his trickery was there. You could see his quick on the ball. Who's a final third which is still lacking. And I think Hugo Lloris just saved them with that outstanding save from that Martial chance in the early Rashford.
It was just...
That was the difference, which was, again, as I said, a typical Mourinho game.
Yeah. Speaking of David De Gea, since you brought up, that entire thing of having a crazy save for Martial, what is happening with David De Gea? Because he is, in my opinion, still the best keeper in the world, but it's mistakes like last night that's going to cost him. It's not just going to cost his team 2 or 3 points going forward, but it's going to cost his reputation big time. I already know so many United fans who Roy Keane really went after him last night, and he said, we can't. Such a player should not be playing for Manchester United. Not just him, Harry Maguire as well. Before we get into a slightly more detailed conversation on David De Gea and what's really happening to his career and his playing, just coming back to the first point that we spoke about. Paul Pogba, and he last night made one of the most crucial interceptions at left back. If you remember so that was one. Second thing is, I think one thing that Pogba truly offers is that defense to offense transition. No one can do it better than Pogba. And the problem with Bruno is it's not a lack of skill or ability. he plays too high up the pitch to be involved every time with a defense to offense transition, which is where I feel Pogba sits beautifully in that space where when you give him the ball, you have Martial, Rashford, Daniel James running. He can cut through 6 players with a single pass. And that's where I feel Pogba is the X factor.
So again, I think like Kern said, Pogba should have started being the best player. Yeah. Let's come back to just yesterday's game. Okay, let's keep it simple. You said he came on, he made an amazing interception at left back. Pogba can't do that in 90 minutes. If he's playing Pogba and Bruno for 90 minutes with only a Fred or McTominay behind him, Pogba doesn't do that. Because his nature as a player that he is, like you mentioned rightly, so he's so gifted, his nature eventually takes him much ahead where he leaves his player hanging in his back. He will leave a Matic hanging. He will leave McTominay hanging. And that when you're playing the likes of a Sissoko, when you have 2 over there and they're just sitting there, there's no way you win that battle. You could put Gattuso there, you could put anybody there. No one's going to win that battle when you're being overrun constantly by 2 players, right? I think we agree with your point.
I think we spent
time. But to move on. Let's move on. Move on.
I'm going to take it on to what we were sort of moving on to, which is David. And yes, there are those question marks that are coming in because now suddenly you have someone like a Dean Henderson who we've sent out on loan. You have a Romero who's a great number 2 who, performs very well whenever he gets a chance. So suddenly there's
best number 2 in the world.
Yeah, suddenly there's this question that if there's a bid that comes in for De Gea offering decent money this summer, let him go because you have Dean Henderson who can easily come in as number 1. You have Sergio Romero who's there to sort of hold that fort down. And suddenly it might be an option where, yes, De Gea has done a lot for this club. But if he's starting to underperform, like lots of players did under Sir Alex, if it's time to go, it's time to go. You have the players to replace them. You replace them.
But do you think it's time to go? Do you guys think it's time to go? I still think David De Gea has 5 years left at United.
So I don't think it's time to go. I think one of our earlier episodes I mentioned, Ole will still give De Gea 1 full season. But if he continues to have these mistakes in that season, he'll probably be shipped off in the 21-22 season. And that is because if you see the stats of the last 2 years, after the World Cup, De Gea, including last night, has made 8 errors directly leading to goal just himself. That is highest in the league. And before that, the season before the World Cup, he was a Golden Glove. I think that World Cup phase, and when Madrid won that 4 Champions League with Zidane, I think he's mentally clocked off since then of what could have been. I feel that's where he is stuck. And we should afford him the loyalty. But like Kern said, I disagree with Kern. I don't think he should go right now.
I'm not saying he should go right now, but my main thing is that, if obviously I'm not saying his starting position is at question right now, right? He's obviously going to start every game, no questions asked. But we are in a predicament right now where if suppose Dean Henderson comes back and tells us that, give me a deal. I'm not going out on loan anymore. You either give me a deal or I'm going completely or you sell me.
It won't be give me a deal. It'll be play me. I don't think giving him a deal will suffice. He'll want to play every match for Man United.
Play me or I leave. Play me or I leave.
Keep him at 3rd choice, right?
Yeah.
You either make me a number 1 or you sell me. I'm not going to do this loan business anymore.
True.
That's where this question. Otherwise, I think it was a very safe thing. Yes, you keep De Gea on 1 more season, or because we have that conundrum on the side, which is why adds to all this price.
Overall, looking at this game from last night, looking at Tottenham United, here's my final summation of both sides. And I think we've got a clear sort of reference points now to use. I think tactically, one might argue that Jose probably had the upper hand last night purely because of the result, which was 1-1. Because going into the game, one would have imagined United to be the favourites going into this. So I think tactically, it was visible that United struggled to really break through Tottenham in the first 50, 60 minutes. So I think tactically, Jose did do 1 over. But I still think this Manchester United squad is a better squad than Tottenham Hotspur. And I still think they will continue to fight for top 4. Whereas for Tottenham, I'm not sure where and what they're going to play at because they do have a difficult run of fixtures also coming up in comparison to United. And the way I'd look at this is that at the end of these 8 or 9 mini games, the mini league that's come after Project Restart, Ole would have done very well to finish in the top 4. And I think Jose will do very well to finish in top 6.
Interesting. I think I can't argue.
It's down to, as you said, yes, this game is done. On a whole, yes, Jose probably did well to sort of get a point from this. But it doesn't really help them for their top 6 chances because they still have a big round of fixtures coming up and they need to play catch up. So this is 2 points lost for them. So in that sense, definitely a much better result for United. And it's going to be interesting to see how Jose plays his game, because he can't just park the bus for all the games.
Yeah, and the biggest winner here, though, guys, was Chelsea. Just let's remember that. Chelsea get to probably win their game and go 5 points clear again. So I feel that.
Annie, what did you think of your favorite player, man? What did you think of Heung-min Son coming back, and what did you think of his performance? Was he impactful last night, or did he also look a bit rusty?
He had his patches during the game, but I feel he was still very rusty. I was actually surprised he didn't have more of an impact. He had one very great chance with that header. Apart from that, he really didn't cause Van Bissaka any troubles, nor did he cut in too many times to kind of change it around and push at one of the centre backs who was struggling in the start. He didn't do enough for me to help release Kane, to take pressure off Kane. So I would say
who's your man of the match?
He had an average game.
Yeah, Karan, who's your man of the match? Bruno Fernandes, I think, right?
And Bruno had to be, yeah.
So for me, it was Pogba. For Karan, Bruno, and Annie, for you, it was Bruno as well.
Bruno, just by a bit, yes.
Okay, and maybe before we wrap,
looking at Spurs, then it will probably be a Bergwijn or a Sissoko. I think they need to be mentioned as well, because they did a phenomenal job for Spurs.
Hugo Lloris, 2 match-winning, sort of match-saving saves. Yeah. Do you think he gets a shout in for man of the match as well?
He gets a shout in, of course, because he kept them in. But I think just in terms of how they controlled the game throughout those 50 minutes to keep it at bay, the midfield of Spurs gets that special mention.
Yeah.
Now here's my favorite topic before we end this segment. At full time, you had all the players with the managers in the middle of the pitch, and I thought it was really heartwarming to see Scott McTominay hug Jose Mourinho, to see Jose Mourinho go and give Eric Bailly a hug. I think Victor Lindelof and him exchanged a couple of handshakes. No love lost, clearly, isn't it?
Yeah, I think clearly the players appreciate that effort he put into them. A lot of these players are publicly backed by him as well, don't forget. Mourinho normally tends to publicly go against certain players like with Pogba, but he's also backed certain players, said good stuff about them. McTominay thrived under him. McTominay became the player he is under him. So I don't think there would definitely be any animosity there. And I think on and all, that was a great game. The hype was certainly there, even though there's a bit of rustiness. And we're looking forward to the following games in this game week, And let's have a look at the Merseyside Derby in our next episode, guys.
So that was all from this episode of Football Pundits. Before we wrap and before we sort of sign off, I'm going to let Karan give you a slightly interesting piece of news about last night. Not only was there Jose Mourinho and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer on television, not only were there 22 United players and Tottenham players combined on television. Who else was on television last night, Karan?
It was me. So I was part of the Premier League fan wall, which is pretty interesting. I'm not sure if it counts, but I can say I visited the Tottenham London Stadium now. Does it count? But it was pretty interesting to be on that screen and just be part of the atmosphere in a weird way. Just knowing that the players could see me if at any moment was pretty cool. But yeah, I mean that was cool, and I'm just looking forward to the next games. Honestly, now more than anything else, and see you guys for our next episode. And just hit subscribe. Before we leave this, hit comment, leave your comments, let us know, follow us on Twitter, let us know what you think, and see you in the next episode.
Bye-bye.